And ladies and gentlemen, we are live on Magnetic Reversal News, Geomagnetic Storm Watch. We have an Aurora watch. We have the estimated planetary KP index up, and we are listening to ourselves on another laptop. So I want to thank everyone that's in the room, 52 people in the house. Welcome to the show. We're going to go over a little bit about what's happening on the sun and a few other things to bring you up to speed with some context. If you're interested on the magnetic excursion that we're currently living, we will have a question and answer session. And we will also discuss the multiple coronal mass ejections coming off the sun, the sunspots that we're looking at, the coronal hole stream that's just hit Earth and sent us up here into KP5 just about 3 hours ago. We're going to discuss that and more. So stay tuned for the boom as we welcome 107 people to the house. Welcome to the show, Eric Court, Vivian, Abby, Steve Canyon, Aquarian Riddle. Some people's names I've never heard of. Vapor Missile, Jen Welsh. Oh, a lot of new people in here. Elena Montague. Let's just scroll down here, see who else is in here. Misfits, Pete 2.0, Michelle Tapia. All welcome to the program. Chris is in the house, Victor Debs, Johan, Dancing Gypsy, Tom Shapansky. I probably completely destroyed that. Bellator Senex, Sherry Chapman, UP Gardner in the house, Elton Butterfield, and many more. Kimberly K, James Ortiz, Deep Blue, Catherine Sward. I'm missing people. Clyde Kuba. Dope noise. That's pretty hot. I like that. 163 in the house. Okay, let's just move on with the program. What we're looking at is a slight uptick in geomagnetic intensity, and that is thanks to, well, we're going to have to stop the screen and share the screen each time we want to look at something cool. And so we're going to look at the telemetry here. But let's first look at the WASP-Enlil spiral. So what this is going to show us is the solar wind prediction. And this is coming directly from NOAA. And what it's showing is that if we watch over here on the program, there are multiple cannibal CMEs that all meet together that are going to bring a plasma stream towards Earth on October 4th. Now, we are currently experiencing some geomagnetic, a low-level geomagnetic storm. And that's because of the coronal hole. So let's share the screen. Do I even have that up there? Yes. Where can we get that? Okay, so here we are over at the current geomagnetic overview with that KP5 showing up on the estimated planetary K index. This is the 3-hour data, which means that you can get more accurate, or you can get broader or tighter data depending on what you want to look at. But we're looking at the 3-hour data here. Over to the right here are the K indices for, where are we at? These are the 3-hour K indices for the last 7 days at all the stations. So we have Boulder Station, we have Fredericksburg, we have the estimated planetary, wherever that is, and College Station. So we only have 2 stations actually showing us, one at KP5, the other at KP4.5. KP4 and KP4. So that is the current position for all of the stations as far as geomagnetic activity, which is very low, the lowest level geomagnetic storm you can get to. We have it was a little brighter when the event took place. Now the event in question on the solar, let's take a look at this telemetry. So we're going to have to go over and look at a little different telemetry. What we're going to look at is the Discover Solar Wind telemetry. This is all the stations measuring the phi angle, the BZ, the plasma density, and the speed. And let's take a look at that so that for those of you that are new, that don't know a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? Let's figure out what we're talking about. So how about we do that together? It's pretty simple. This is not like, well, some people like to talk with big words to make it unavailable for you, but there's no reason why this information should be unavailable to you. It's very easy to understand. So when we talk about telemetry in general, and welcome to the show, everyone. Who does my hair? I just literally put some soap, washed my hands, and went through the hair like that with my fingers. So magic. It was magic that did that. We now have 222 watching. Can you imagine that number? So when we talk about telemetry, telemetry simply explains that these are scientific instruments reading data from off Earth and bringing it back to Earth. So the telemetry is coming from off Earth, being beamed down to Earth. And then in this particular instance, when we look at the Discover Solar Wind telemetry, it is measuring the BZ. It's measuring the phi angle. And this is the direction of energy either moving Earth to sun or sun to Earth. The plasma density, this is the density of plasma coming directly from the sun in space. We have the plasma speed. This is the speed of the plasma, and then the temperature of the plasma. So when we see any spikes in the density, the speed, and the temperature with a shift in the BZ or the phi angle, which we saw just about 6 hours ago, something's going to happen to the geomagnetic field on Earth because these are huge perturbations. When you have a perturbation is something that switches conditions rapidly. Like if we're all having a general conversation and I punch you in the face, that is a perturbation because now everything changes because of the speed of the punch into your face. So a perturbation is a rapid change in existing conditions. And you can look at the telemetry here and see on the BZ, which is the red here, a perturbation, a rapid one that shifted from Earth to sun. Sun is up top, Earth is down low in these graphs. On the phi angle and the BZ. So when we have the BZ up high, it's the Earth pointing energy at the sun. When it shoots back down, the angle shifts towards the Earth. When the phi angle, same thing. So when we have a shift down here towards zero, that would be sun energy coming towards Earth. When it's right in the middle, it's like competing, where the energy from the sun and the Earth are competing. They're pushing against each other like opposing magnets. That's why when we reach this level right here at the 180 zone where we are right now, we worry about earthquakes because all of the magnetism on the Earth is pushing against the sun at the same time. They're pushing against each other, and that can trigger small fractures that have built up energy. And then there you go. You got a boom. Literally. Oh my God. Ransom's in the house. Welcome to the show. And everyone else that just joined us, Johan Dancing, Gypsy, Alana Monte, Guido, James Ortiz, Klaus Schwab is in the house. Wow. I feel honored. Who else is here? Mish Gleason. I probably said that. My Cat Food. Susan Donahue. Welcome to the program. Paul Horn. Al Gore is in the house. We've got all the important characters in the geopolitical spectrum. So that's all that's important. Big up. 246 watching. Kim B just joined us. Kimberly K. Craig F. Paul, said that. Jimmy Lee. Night shift. Let's talk about the night shift. Well, let's talk about some stuff you're not going to hear anywhere else but here on this live stream. We have a radio show. It's going to launch this week, Saturday, 2 to 3 p.m. on Revolution Radio Studio B. It's called Ancient Civilizations, and I hope you tune in. It's going to be all the things we can't say here and more, and we will obviously probably mirror some of these radio programs on YouTube and our other platforms. So we have a new Revolution Radio show that's going to be launching on Saturday. It's just a 1-hour program, hopefully. And so it'll be 2 p.m. Mountain Time on Saturday. Ancient Civilizations on Revolution Radio Studio B. We'll give you a full update later in the week on Oppenheimer Ranch project. So let's talk about a little bit about what's coming to Earth. Those of you that have tuned in and want to know what's happening with some of the solar flare activity that's just popped off at Earth, we're going to be sharing that with you now. So let's take a look at perhaps the Soho movie theater in Lascaux C3. And what we're looking at here is I've chosen, let's go through it together, the image coming from Lascaux C2, the resolution at 512, and the dates from October 1st to October 2nd. I clicked generate. It downloaded about 300 images that gave me this composite overlay where we can see 2 CMEs, and then the X flare is missing from here. And many of you are saying, X flare, what X flare? Well, what we're looking at here is like an M5 followed by an M8 flare. And those are the CMEs that will cannibalize each other and reach here on October 4th. You can see there's not going to be a lot of effect because the only time Earth sees major effect is when we have a halo eruption. When this explosion here, we can witness all around the circumference of the sun. And there's clearly no halo effect from any of these CMEs, including the X flare, which NASA and NOAA are not showing yet. That data is not up, so we really can't download it. Even if we change this, let's say this date to the 3rd. So what we can do is we can probably, let's see if I can do this live. Nope, it's not letting me grab this. Let's go from the 1st to the 3rd. Nope. 1st to the 3rd. And okay, so you see I've set the dates, and then it's going to pick up all of the images available. That was rapid. And then we're going to play it. Nope, it's not working. It's not working. All right, let's go LASCO C3 512 from the 1st to the 3rd. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I'm doing this live. There it is. We've got some good imagery. It's happening really, really quick. This is Venus, which is being occulted by the sun as it makes its way behind the sun. But they actually are showing a little bit of that X flare. So we're going to see an M flare, second M flare. Yeah. So C3 is not really going to give it to us. Let's try LASCO C2 on the same time frame. October 1st to the present, and we'll generate that again. Make sure we have the right data. This is what we had up earlier. So we're going to see once it hits the 2nd here, boom, boom. And then the X flare. You see that little boom at the end? It's the very beginning of the X flare imagery coming in right there. So we won't be able to see any of that tonight, but we did get to see some of the booms. So that's what's headed towards Earth. And let me go over here and see if there's any questions. 10 and 12 meter radio bands sound like bacon frying. Glad to see you off the night train, says Jimmy Lee. I don't know what that means. Everyone here is a mod. Yes, Night Shift. Most people on Magnetic Reversal News are mods, but because I'm doing it live, I don't have that accessibility over. It has to be other laptops to my right that I can go do that because we're over here working in the StreamYard studio. And guess what? I don't have a producer. I don't have anyone. Guess who's in the barn with me? Hello! Yeah, nobody. So I've been producing this show for 6 years, completely alone, with zero help from anybody at all. Leah doesn't help me, my partner. Not a single person has helped me produce or publish this show. It's been all of my insanity and my insane work over the last 6 years on both channels. So if you think there's people in the background doing things, no, we don't make any money. I barely make enough money to pay for the equipment, the internet, and the expenses just for what I produce here. So as long as we can keep it even here and I'm not losing any money producing this content, we're happy to do it. Albeit it is a little strain on other things we want to do. But I do believe that independent media and the types of information that I'm sharing with you well before the mainstream media. Lots of my predictions come 24, 48 hours before anyone's willing to take a guess. And that's because I have a scientific background. I have a experience at university in geology and paleoclimatology. I've been studying the sun for over 10 years, as well as many other people. So there is a certain level of expertise where if you look at something every day for decades, that you become one of the top people in the field to report on that. And very few people are independently reporting honestly on a lot of these topics. So that's why we like to bring it to you as soon as we can. And doing it live is sooner than anyone can. And that's just the truth. And a boom to knowledge. So please smash that thumbs up. Thank you, Paul Horn, for saying it. Hello, like, share, subscribe, folks, says Eric Court. Vera Coaches in the house. Man, we have some very influential people here on the podcast. I'm late, but at least it's live. Yes, it is Vera Coacha. Mark Anthony Gomez. Diamond, when does the magnetic field reach its lowest point? In the 2030s? No, not at all. Not even close. The magnetic field could potentially dip all the way down to levels from the Lechamp excursion. This is a magnetic excursion. There's nowhere way to tell the end of the dip. All we know now is that the dip here, let's go over, and this is a perfect time to share the dipole moment. So we've pulled up all the most important things we might need to discuss tonight. And one of these is the dipole moment. Now, there's very few places you can get this information on the internet. The information is not being shared readily with the public. The world magnetic model is only updated every 5 years, unless there's a huge emergency like there was before the 2020 update. They had to update it in 2021 again after the update because things had shifted so rapidly. Either that was a pre-update before the 2020 update, whatever it is. The reason is that on this graph, you can see the rapid decline in the dipole moment, a rapid change here in about 1960 of it going straight down, and then showing that it's like leveling off. That's not true. By 2010, there was another rapid pull down. So we're back in a lower, a faster drop down off to the right of this screen. Yeah, so this is actually traveling faster and further down, more vertical than this. It's turned another level of reduction in intensity. And when the dipole moment gets below 1 or 2, see here we're all the way up here at 8 times 10 to the 22nd. When it gets to 2 times 10 to the 22nd, mass extinctions occur. When it gets below 5, the whole world is reworked. So we are somewhere between the whole world getting reworked and a mass extinction at this point. And it doesn't happen overnight. And 2035 there's no end date. That's some 2035, 2042, 2046. All those dates are made up by religious zealots reading the Bible or people just putting a date into the ether. Even Ben Davidson doesn't believe in the Doug Vogt date of 2046. He's even categorically said that in public. But he can't respond to me because I've been blocked on all of his channels for years. So there is no real scientific discourse over at Suspicious Observers. If they don't like what you say, they shut you off and shut you down. I was extremely lucky to get an interview with Ben about 3.5 years ago, and his disdain is palpable on the podcast. You can tell how vitriolic he is. Then just the hatred he feels towards me because I call him out on all his bullshit. He basically does like a scientific paper review where he glazes over what the actual paper says and says the paper says what his narrative says, when the majority of the time he is 100% incorrect in his corroboration between his false narrative and what the actual paper set out to do and say. And the majority, 99% of all the people watching him don't check the paper. They don't even, and if they were to read it, they'd be like, I don't know what that means. So they're like, he must be right. He's a lawyer. And that's all I'll talk on that charlatan who's basically starting an overpriced campground next to the most federal prisons located in a single area on the entire planet. Where his Observer Ranch is the most dangerous area in all of North America. The absolute dumbest place, if you were a prepper, to prepare for anything, where Observer Ranch is. So good luck there. Al's in the house, and that's a boom. All right, we want to talk about a little bit more before I go off the chain again. Klaus Schwab says, Jax, you must eat the bugs. All right, let's talk about the possible Earth expanding. It's not a possibility, Jennifer Miller. It's probably the truth. The whole idea and the whole concept of Gondwana land and these massive continents all on one side of the Earth, if it was the same size as it is today, would be impossible. We would literally wobble off a course. And the vast extent of the ocean on the other side is completely ludicrous. It does not fit Occam's razor. It does not fit any well, if you are a critical thinker and you look at all the data, there's very few people out there. So you have to go to undergraduate and graduate school and learn about plate tectonics and dive into multiple classes and then study it for decades and then go look at the rocks and see what they say. At that point, you may be willing to say, well, plate tectonics is a good fairy tale, similar to the Adam and Eve story, but there's just the evidence suggests otherwise. That mountains aren't really building at 1 inch per year, that when these mountain ranges come up, they come up quickly. And that's why I've always been a catastrophist. Even though I learned uniformitarianism at university in my undergraduate years, the professors I work with were catastrophists. And every time I spoke at a Geologic Society of America meeting, in the Northeast, in the Southeast, in the Central region, in the Northwest, it didn't matter. People were completely enamored with what I had to say because I was a physical field geologist. I was going out in the field. I was showing them the cycles of catastrophe in the rock, and they knew it was the truth. But the textbook said otherwise, and they couldn't explain the difference. I just disregarded the textbook and said, look, we know what they tell us, how these depositional environments occur, but what the stratigraphy is showing us is something much different, that stratigraphic environments or environments on Earth last in very quiescent periods for 12,000 years, and then they are rapidly destroyed. There's abrupt climate change in the form of sea level rise every 12,500 years or so, up and down. Every 12,000 years, sea level comes up hundreds of feet, and every 12,500 years, it goes down. This has been going on for hundreds of millions of years. It doesn't matter what basin you're in, sea level comes up 300 and then back down. And this is also with temperature fluctuations in the magnitude of 20 degrees C or more, sometimes less. And so this is very obvious and visible in all of the proxy data we've been collecting for about 3 decades now. And this proxy data comes from the Epica data, the Vostok data, the Greenland ice sheet. And not a lot of people are willing to just throw it up there and talk about what does it mean. But we're going to chuck it up here real quick. What does it mean? Where is it? There it is. Hello. Here we are at the Epica data. Fantastic data set going back almost 1 million years from ice cores collected by hundreds, if not thousands of geologists that have been scouring, rechecking, and refining the data by reanalyzing the ice cores, checking oxygen isotopes, argon, helium, anything they can find in that ice, they check it and they chart it and they put it into the data set. That's what we mean by proxy data. We look at isotopes of all different atoms from the periodic table that exist in this ice. And based on their ratios between one and the other, we can determine hypothetical sea level based on the 018, 016 ratio. That's just one of many different things used in this proxy data. But when you look at the proxy data, it screams out to you that there is a 100,000 year cycle of major catastrophe on Gaia, planet Earth. It's been happening for the Ice Age. Now, these major catastrophes are a rapid rise in temperature, followed by something called an interstadial, where everything's warm and huge civilizations are built, and then a decline into something called an Ice Age that lasts for 80,000 plus years each time. 80,000 years here, 80,000 years here, you picking up what I'm putting down. Now, the interstadial we have been living is as long as any interstadial in the past million years, which means this one is ending. And most of the interstadials, like this shift down, are part of a magnetic excursion. The shift ups as well. When we have rapid changes in the climate on Earth, it is typically associated with a magnetic excursion. Not always, but typically. And a lot of other cosmogenic things happen on these big rises. There's huge amount of meteoric debris and objects that come into Earth and smash onto the surface and light it on fire. Many people think it's the sun outbursting. Now, that could be one factor. There could be some major Carrington events or even larger events that occur on these thresholds. But we clearly know from objects like the Carolina Bays and huge impact craters like the Hiawatha crater back in the potential Younger Dryas, and all the Carolina Bays are happening during this rapid rise here, that we know that there's also impactors occurring. So maybe when the magnetic field of Earth weakens enough, all the crazy stuff that we know that's flying around out in space all comes and falls in on Earth. Now, can you imagine what type of fireworks display that would be when all of the hundreds of thousands of Starlink satellites and all the satellites up there come raining down? That's fantastic. And yes, Jennifer Miller, the Earth is expanding. So Steve Canyon says he listens to Revolution Radio. That's awesome. 413 in the house. I appreciate you all. I wanted to get to a lot of things, but this is way more important. This is the basis of all of the cosmic catastrophe in the last million years. And if you can just go back here, we can find when the Neanderthals went extinct. It's just one of these little blips in the blue line. This one right here, 42,000 years ago. That's the end of Neanderthal. So you can see what a minor actual climatic catastrophe occurs. This goes from the Neanderthal extinction, went from -4 to -10. That's just a 6 degree C change in climate. The IPCC wants you to believe that a 2 degree Fahrenheit change is going to end the empire, but they're being disingenuous. We have high resolution data since the last magnetic reversal, which is just on the other side of this graph, that these types of huge climatic shifts happen rapidly, often, and all the time. And we have nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with some other mechanism. Johan Dancing Gypsy says a flame always shines brightest right before it goes out. Well, isn't that true? Victor Kungad Osaya says, excellent update. I appreciate that. Sherry Chapman, welcome to the show. Trippy. All right, I'm looking for some questions. Can this affect your brains? Yes, all space weather affects humanity. It affects all biological entities. We've done shows on this. When you increase cosmic rays, you get genetic mutation in the biological entity. So the genes are mutating while you're alive. You also get exposed to more UVA, UVB, UVC. So people that are more susceptible to skin cancers will die off, while darker people will be less susceptible. So if you're wondering how white people made it through many of these catastrophes, all you have to do is go look at Lascaux Cave and many other caves in Europe around the time of the extinction of the Neanderthals, and the beautiful murals that show amazing knowledge of astrology in the heavens and the way cosmology affects humanity. And you're looking at it right here in the Epica data. There is cosmology we're looking at here that directly affects life on Earth. It causes mass extinction as well as speciation. It ends empires in a big way. This last rising here was the end of whoever the megalithic culture was that built the megalithic structures in South America, the megalithic structures in the Middle East, the megalithic structures in the Far East, and all of the megalithic structures in Turkey, including, but not limited to, Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe and all the other tepes. If you watched any of our podcasts on the potted hill, the potbelly hill phenomenon in Turkey, there was an advanced culture of cosmological scientists that we have no idea what they were actually doing, but we're going to do an expose. The Moai in Easter Island have the same hands on the same pillars in Göbekli Tepe. So the fact that history tells us that the Moai are just like 1,200 years old is such a fabrication of reality. It's an embarrassment to scientists worldwide. There is no way that the Moai are 1,200, 2,000, or even 4,000 years old if they have the same exact hands, the same bas relief, the same exact carving and shape as the T-pillars in Göbekli Tepe. These have to be contemporaneous societies that have the same knowledge, doing the carvings at the same time. So if Göbekli Tepe was buried 11,500 years ago, then the Moai that are 60 feet underground were buried at the same time. During the same cosmic catastrophe we all call the Younger Dryas, which on this graph is the rapid rise from minus 11C to plus 3C. That's a difference of 15 degrees C in 3,000 years. Sea levels rose 440 feet. All of the empires that were existing at that time are 400 feet underwater. That's why we don't have any evidence of it. Only a few people that were up a little higher made it. Or some areas where land went up during that catastrophe, like Machu Picchu and others, those are high and dry. So this is really an opportunity to plug Ancient Civilizations, our new radio show, where we're going to be talking about this constantly every week, Saturday on Revolution Radio, Studio B at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. So pretty awesome. All right. What else can I tell you? Do what Mavstar does. Beg for donations, says Al Gore. No, we don't need that. $454 in the house. We're still growing. Awesome. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks to the super chats. Eric Court, we appreciate you. UP Gardner, thank you for the super sticker. That really helps us, motivates us to do more work like this. Man, there's so, can you imagine? I'm the only person, I have to go through hundreds of comments here. Dutch Central Bank is captured by Frans van der Haugen with help of Belgium and Holland. That's from Kok van Galen. No idea what that has to do with anything we're talking about tonight. But we're looking for some questions here. Yes, the Earth is definitely getting larger. It's been getting larger for hundreds of millions of years. In fact, based on the most recent update on the expanding Earth theory, which we shared on this program about a year ago, the second edition is out. The Earth was actually 50% smaller 500 million years ago, which makes it completely plausible for a Pangea or a Gondwanaland scenario, because the oceans are not 9,000 miles across on the other side. Completely ludicrous. Makes absolutely no sense in planetary structure or stability. If you look at our planet right now, there is an even number of continents separated by oceans. Otherwise, if you have an unstable wobbling top, which the Earth wobbles at a 23.5 degree angle, which is the precession of the equinoxes, if that top was unstable, it would wobble out of the solar system, literally. Tin TV, you're not banned. I'm looking right at your comments, so I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, bro. All right. Which Adam and Eve story? Chan Thomas? Yeah, that's the only Adam and Eve story. Mac 711. Prove we live on a globe. Well, just pull up any of the live satellite feeds and you will see a satellite looking at Earth from space. I'm going to look for one right now for you. I put in live Earth satellite. There are 5 live satellites currently now looking at Earth. Hello. I just had one up here. So let me go to YouTube and let me find one of these for you. And if you looked at just any of the, so what I'm going to show here is this is the International Space Station. Let's see if we can get some curvatures here. Please show me. Oh, we got to share that. All right, let's go over to the International Space Station live. And I can't even believe that that there are people on planet Earth that think that the Earth is flat. It just shows you how disinformation and the public school system can allow for such stupidity amongst humans. Now, they get offended when I say that, but the curvature of the Earth was proven thousands of years ago by shadow experiments from very smart philosophers. And the problem is that the people that think the Earth is flat don't even know basic math, calculus, or geometry, period. And any of the models that they show of the flake flat Earth scenario. First of all, we have things called telescopes that were discovered hundreds of years ago. And when we look out into space, every single object we look at is circular, a globe. Yet flat earthers are so inept that they want to believe that out of infinite numbers of globe objects, stars, planets, all globular globes, they're all globes, oblate spheroids of some kind, that the Earth is some kind of a flat cracker, like a Ritz cracker with a turtle holding it up, and we're spinning around. I mean, it's like I don't even know where to go there. I didn't set myself up to debunk flat earthers because there is no purpose in arguing with someone that says 5 + 2 is 3. They're clearly wrong, and there's really no other discussion needed, except please get back to basics and learn a little bit about astronomy, the history of astronomy and cosmology, and stop being so naive. Stop being easily brainwashed. It's groupthink. It's like you're bored, you have no friends, and you're like, oh yeah, I could do flat Earth. Then I have hundreds of flat Earth friends. Oh my God, everyone's flat Earth. You're all globetards. Flat Earth. So that's as far as I'll go into that. 457. I didn't lose one flat earther. That's amazing. Those damn cows, they just keep on messing it up. Boom chart, cow farts, ice data. We're looking. All right. Has to be magnetic fields from surrounding planetary alignment. What about the ancient maps of Earth? What about them, Steve Canyon? What about the ancient maps of Earth? That's not a question, really. What about them? You have to have context. What about the ancient maps of Earth is not a question. Did people learn? Did you learn about sentence structure and how to write? Did anyone go to school? Does anyone remember? What does it mean? Is it rising or falling? What does it mean? Is it rising or falling? And when is it due to affect us? Guru Girl says. What does what mean, rising and falling? You can't ask a question without explaining what the noun is. What does it mean it's rising and falling? What is it, Guru Girl? It's like everyone has become retarded and doesn't understand how to communicate what they actually want to say. I can't even get, it's been 3 years that I do a live Q&A and no one can write a fucking question. That's an actual fucking question. So, Guru Girl, what does it mean when the graph is going up and down, or the temperature, or the sea level? You need a fucking noun to have a question. You need to have something you're talking about. I can't believe this. It's like, thank God I didn't teach grade school. Ben Davis, that's not his name, dope noise. So how can you expound on a person where you don't even know his name? That's how pathetic the community that watches our programs are. No one. I have been collecting the data from the millions of links, the 8.4 million links that I've put up in 35 million views. And only 5 people look at each link. That's the average in 8 years. 5 people look at each link. This is on a video. I've had videos with 375,000 views in 24 hours. 5 people look at each link. That's 1/100th of a percent of people actually care about what I'm talking about. Isn't that insane? And people, that's why people think the earth is flat. For fuck's sake. My goodness. Stop being naive. Start doing your own homework. Start actually reading the papers that I present. Start looking at the articles and click all of the links below each of my videos and read them. It will take you less than an hour or so. They're only a few pages. There it is. Geomagnetic storm. Weakening rapidly. Oh, and we have another event happening now. Well up into the M range, happening live. Oh, it just peaked out. So we just peaked out with an M18. And the activity on the sun is kicking up a notch. No, we don't want that. So let's look at this solar flare happening right now, live on air. Boom. You can see the peak was just about 8 minutes ago. It's now dropping down. M1.8. We should be seeing some radio blackout from this. So let's go back over to the correct telemetry and take a look. All right, let's take a look at this. And we're going to be sharing this as a live boom with a radio blackout. There it is. All right, so you can see here the global delayer absorption is glowing now as this M1.8 peaks. The 3-day geomagnetic forecast is putting us in KP6, and we're still at KP5. But clearly, because of the telemetry, we can see the drop down here. You can see the Aurora forecast is weakening. So it's not looking like this coronal hole is anything spectacular. And what we should be focusing on more here is these solar flares. We've got now, this is the 4th M flare in about 30 hours. And some of this is coming from a region that's just turning around the limb now. If we look at the latest, Look at this sunspot cluster here. This is fantastic. This is the one that's giving us the high M and the X flares as it turns away. This has given us an M flare during this X flare today. So look at this array of sunspots. If these grow and meet together, oh my, this is a large area turning in on Earth. So that's a pretty concerning area. And we're going to keep a close eye on that as we just got another flare coming off the sun. Don't know where that came from. One of these two spots, either this region or this region is responsible for the ongoing M flare, clearly. Well, based on the way it's been flaring. What drives the excursions of the magnetic fluctuations? Well, Jack, that's probably the galactic current sheet, if you've heard of it. In all of my studies, Jack, we've been looking for that mechanism for now 4 or 5 decades. Since the Epica and the ice core data started coming out, we were looking for the mechanism. So back in the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of us had accepted it was the Milankovitch orbital perturbations. The eccentricity cycle, the precessional cycle is modulated by the eccentricity cycle, and that there is a obliquity cycle which modulates the precessional cycle within the eccentricity cycle. So every 26,000 years, the Earth goes one wobble, but every 2 wobbles, it goes big and then it goes small. That's the eccentricity. No, that's the obliquity. The eccentricity is the change in the pattern, the rotational pattern of the Earth around the sun. It gets more oblique and more prolate. And this happens over 100,000 year period. So we get further and closer to the sun in the obliquity of the rotation. So, but the problem with the precession of the equinoxes, the eccentricity and the obliquity of Milankovitch, is that mathematically they're all very gradual. And so what you need to then believe in is something called tipping points, where as the tilt shifts, at some point there's a tipping point where all the ice melts or all the ice grows. The problem is with this is that the data, the proxy data from Epica and the ice core data does not support that. What it supports is catastrophic shifts, very rapid shifts. So let's take a look at some of this ice core data that I brought up for you here. So here's the Vostok ice core data with temperature and CO2. Let's just shut that background music off. And so present is to the right on this graph. And let me pull it up for you because you guys are oh, you are looking at it. Boom. All right, let me go back to the graph. And let me shut off this satellite. All right, so the right of the graph is the Holocene. This is the Holocene interstadial. The last interstadial prior to the Holocene interstadial was the Eemian interstadial right here that went from about 130,000 years ago to 110,000 years ago. That's 20,000 years. And then after that, it dropped straight down into Ice Age that lasted for 80,000 years until the Younger Dryas event, which drove the sea levels 400 feet higher and raised the temperature at least 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And the Eemian was the longest interstadial prior to the Holocene. So it's anyone's supposition based on Occam's razor and critical thinking that the Holocene interstadial will be similar to the Eemian, because we go back to the last interstadial, it was a spike, and the interstadial before that was a spike. And not only that, it was a 1-2 spike with a third spike, and this had a 1-2-3 spike. So we're probably going to see a long interstadial like we've already seen, matching the Eemian. So everything after the Eemian interstadial down here would be similar to what we will experience in the next 80,000 years. A rapid drop down into maximum glaciation with sea level fall of 200 plus feet and a continuous drop down of sea level and a building of ice for 80,000 years. There's no other scenario that could happen. Everything that the IPCC and the UN says is based on science fiction and fairy tale, not facts. These are the facts. The Earth is a lot bigger than people understand. The magnetosphere, the atmosphere, a lot bigger than people understand. The fact that people think that a trace gas of CO2, which has once been 4,000 parts per million on Earth in geologic history, yeah, that's 10 times the level now that's dangerous, is completely ludicrous. Big super chat just coming out. Carnal Nature, thank you for the $20 boom. I appreciate your sentiments. And it's not hard for me to share this information. It's just intrinsic. It's information that I learned decades ago. It's information I've been refining. And there have been hundreds, if not thousands of papers on this type of proxy data coming out. So paleoclimatology is well known. There's just very few paleoclimatologists worldwide. It's estimated there's less than 1,300 people like me that have this type of intrinsic knowledge, that have studied this at such a depth. 1,300 out of 8 billion is nobody. And out of 1,300 people, how many paleoclimatologists are willing to do this? It's probably a handful, probably 5 ever in the entire world. So clearly the billions of sheep, the indoctrinated and the brainwashed, are going to watch just one of my programs and be like, oh, poo, 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 he's nonsense. Fake news, denier. I do not deny climate change. In fact, climate has changed so radically and drastically over the last 700,000 years that it pales infinitely in comparison to any of the warnings the IPCC is even showing us. And that is why they're frauds. When a group of supposed experts say that a rise in 1 degree centigrade is the most they've ever seen, and I can show you this graph where it easily goes up and down 10 and 20 degrees all the time, why don't they tell you that? Because they're liars and they have an agenda, and it has nothing to do with the facts. All right, I'm going to take a few more questions and I got to wrap this up. But it's been a pleasure talking to all of you 480 people in the house. I appreciate you all tuning in. Elizabeth Candelaria says, I watch Ben's channel and sometimes feel stupid that I don't quite get it. Yeah, that's on purpose. For the last 8 years, Ben has been using bigger words and limiting. He's a lawyer. He never taught at university, difficult scientific concepts that he needed to break down to the layman to teach, people that just came from high school, more difficult things. He simply wants to use big words to whitewash the fact that his connection to his analysis of papers coming out have absolutely no connection to what he's connecting them to. So if you use big enough words and you say, oh, this paper came out that proved my theory, when you read the paper and it has nothing to do with his theory, then you start to put the pieces together. Yeah. So he specifically uses big words to make you feel stupid so that you continue to watch and you bow down to him like a god. Now, I could use big words, and sometimes I do because there's no other words to use in the place of those big words. But my expertise is in taking difficult concepts and breaking them down to the layman, throwing them out there like a baseball that anyone can catch in a mitt. And so that everyone can marinate on these topics and start to understand deeply what's been happening on Earth based on all of the geologic evidence and what the actual proxy data is. Proxy data is other data that tells us maybe what something else was happening. Like when you look at tree rings, when we see fat tree rings, we can assume there was lots of water that year. When we have small tree rings, it was probably a drought. That is the proxy. The proxy is the tree ring, which doesn't really tell us anything except how thick the ring is. But based on what we know about tree rings and the fact that trees grow more in wet years and less in dry years, we can assume the obvious, that small tree rings represent drought years and big tree rings represent wet years. That is the entire concept of proxy data. And I've just explained it to you in the most basic way that everyone, all the way down to a newborn that doesn't even speak, can understand. That's the difference between a teacher and a charlatan. All right. John from Yonkers gives Diamond money on locals. Does he? That's awesome. I didn't know that. Who's John? Thank you, John. If you don't know, we have a locals channel. If you watch our Rumble videos, these are videos we could never put up on YouTube without being demonetized or deplatformed. You can also connect to our locals community, which I very infrequently go to because there's only 4 or 5 people there. But more people go to locals. You don't have to donate to be there. We appreciate those that do because it helps with our Rumble algorithm. We make about $50 every 6 months on Rumble. It's about $7 a month. And we put a lot of effort into that. I'm talking probably for 80 hours a month for $7. So that's 80 cents an hour I work on my Rumble channel. And we have over 7,000 viewers there. And I do the same amount of work on this channel. So that's just how it works. You got to give to get. And what I learned is that the more I give and the more I give selflessly, the more I receive tenfold. So change the paradigm you live in. Start thinking outside the box. Start manifesting your own destiny through your own thought process. If you continuously think about what you want in the future and project yourself out, let's say you live in a crack house in Chicago, you make $0 a week, you don't have a job, and you're on parole. All you have to do is start projecting your dream. Let's say you want to be a permaculture farmer in Wyoming. You think about that every day. You manifest it. You wake up and you pray. You say, I want to be the best permaculture farmer in Wyoming. I'm going to give away my food for free to needy people and at a discount for everyone else that wants to buy it. And you continue that mantra for years, every day, morning, noon, and night. And within a few years, you're all of a sudden going to be surrounded by permaculture students or teachers. You're going to be in permaculture farms. You're going to be working there. You're going to have volunteers coming to you. And then you're going to set yourself up into a position where someone's going to say, hey, I've got this farm out in Wyoming. I want you to come out and manage. And you just manifest your destiny. That's how it works. That's how I'm here. That's why I'm sharing these videos with you. I was homeless. And then I switched over to the spiritual life, and I started to atone for all the bad things I've done. I did a lot of those bad things because bad things happened to me in my life. But I don't want to dwell on the past. I want to live in the future. And the only way I can live in the future is by living in the moment today. And the only way you can mold your future is by doing something different now. And so I just told you how do you do that. You change your mindset. You change your mantra. You repeat what you want to be in a positive and progressive way, and it will manifest itself. That's how the fabric of the universe works. Some people call it the matrix. Some people want to live in fear and be stuck in that hole forever in misery until they die a miserable death. But as Abraham Lincoln said, and he's a genius, that's why he was murdered. That's why someone came to murder me. A man is as happy as he sets his mind to, and that includes women too. Because back then, a man meant all people. That's why we call it humanity. That's everyone, all people. But it's been bastardized. The language and the spelling, they have put a spell on us. Yeah, it's black magic. And now they're putting even more spells on us where they're confusing you with the whole gender identity spelling. Yeah. These are nothing more than witches and magicians. And you can beat them at their own game by creating your own matrix where you don't believe that. There are biologically two genders based on science, and we know that. There are no other genders based on science. So you can make up as many as you want, and you'll be a quack. You will certainly not be a scientist, and you certainly won't be correct. Those are facts based on reality. The world we live in is not based on reality, however. And that's why we started the channel, because we knew this was coming. In fact, when everyone in the world believes the opposite of the truth, the powers that be have done their job. And we're here to unindoctrinate you from that brainwashing. Connie Lingus in the house. Jeffrey Tisdale, thank you for the super chat. We appreciate you. It's very humbling to see that people are willing to give as much as I give. I don't even know you guys. I'm sure maybe I know some of you. I've shaken your hands. You travel long distances to come see me at events. Julie, 777. Thank you. She's from down under, sending a super chat of $20. Awesome. It is literally humbling. I get choked up, man. I'm easy. I'm just scrolling through so many people commenting. I can't read all this. I'll go through it later. But there's 500 people commenting, and most of you are commenting. Carnal Nature, another 20. Thank you. Appreciate it. Eric Court with a 420 boom. We all know what time it is. Amber Lynn with the super sticker. Man, oh man. I think I'm just scrolling in circles. Or did Tisdale give another 20? Man, you guys are generous. We appreciate you 100%. Such a blessing to talk to you. I'm going to look at the last 50 comments here, see if there's another question. Art Bell proved that several times with having his millions of listeners concentrate on something, and damn it if it didn't happen. Yeah, the power is scary. Now look, when you first, if you don't know how to pray, there's no it's non-religious praying. That's why I was scared to pray, because I thought it had to do with religion. Praying is a way of speaking through your central nervous system, through your kundalini, back into your nervous system to your pineal gland. You're speaking through the universe back to yourself in prayer. Think of it as an electric circuit that goes out to the universe and back into you. So when you're setting your intention, all you're doing is looping that electromagnetic force back into you, and it's reinforcing it into your kundalini, into your pineal gland, because it is now part of a true belief system. So the only way you can pray successfully is to be without ego. It has to be altruistic. I want to help others. I want to be the best. I want to be the shining example. I want to be the glowing light. I don't want to be the richest, egotistical schmucktard. I want to be the best shining example of this thing. Show me the way. You can't have a set goal. I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a billionaire. You just want to be the best at something, the greatest, the shining example, with nothing in return. It's a lesson in humility. We must be humble before the universe that created us, before the universe can teach us anything. We need to be teachable. And that needs to be without material beliefs. The whole idea of material possessions has been pressed on us by the powers that be to weaken our intellect and our powers of psychic ability. We were once a psychic society that didn't need language to communicate. There were no wars. There are many examples of this, but they've been hidden, crushed, burned in the Library of Alexandria, because the powers that be today that are slave owners of the entire planet don't want us to realize our true potential. If enough of us came together in the way I'm speaking, we could end all of this nonsense in a moment. And that's what we're working towards. One day at a time, one thing at a time, one prayer at a time. We ask you all to humble yourselves before the universe and just give it a try. If you're agnostic, if you hate me for all the things I said, I felt the same way until I just gave it a chance. I started prayer and meditation as part of my protocol. A lot of you know what I did. For about 2 or 3 years, I swore off all Eastern medicine. I didn't take anything over the counter, no pharmaceuticals, no drugs, no alcohol, no genetically modified foods, only pure organically grown foods or whole foods. That's all I ate. Abstinence. I didn't have sex. I didn't masturbate. I was so uncomfortable for that time. But I tried it. Because the books I was reading told me to do it. I meditated. I prayed. I asked for guidance. I asked for answers. I was pleading with the universe to show me the way. And one day I woke up and I had an answer, and it freaked me out. It freaked me out. But it was so encouraging and enlightening. And it was exactly what I wanted to hear, that I was completely changed as a human. And I continue this practice to today. It gives you peace of mind. It gives you clarity. It gives you direction. It gives you purpose. You don't have to have money. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to have a job. All good things come to those who wait in quiet reflection, in prayer. And that's a boom to knowledge. Thanks to all 462 watching. Hope you got something out of the video. The powers that be want you to think it's all about the he said, she said bullshit, and it's not. There'll always be a left. There'll always be a right. There'll always be good. There'll always be evil. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is for each individual to manifest their own higher purpose. And we've been separated from that. Because of the system we live in, the majority of people are stuck in dead-end jobs, working check to check. It doesn't mean you have to be miserable. If you're stuck in that paradigm, I was, and then I did the things I told you I did, and even stuck in that, I was working like a $9 an hour job. I was completely the happiest I have ever been in my entire life. And that was 38 years old. I didn't even understand what was happening. It was the first time I understood what living actually meant. A purpose-driven life is one of serenity, love, compassion, where you know how to react in situations which used to baffle you for your entire life. That's what happens. Because you are being driven by some other force that is not your ego. You've just given it away. You just give it up and you say, please, just guide me. Guide me. Because every time I try to do it, it's bad results, man. And it works. It works if you work it. Be safe. We love you. Thanks for joining us. And that's a boom in the room.